And as Christians, I don't believe that vestments or liturgical gowns make a bishop or make a leader. I do not believe in that at all. In fact, that's Old Testament. That's Old Covenant. That's not something you bring into the New Testament. In the New Testament, a bishop, along with other elders, pastors, evangelists, and teachers, they're co-equal. They differ in terms of their function, like we dealt with the thing of men and women, Sandra. So what's going on? What's happening out there in the Christian world? Why are people so afraid? This thing about the science of mind, Sandra, the secret. That's been a great discussion about we can use our thoughts to bring unreality into reality. How powerful is man? Does man have the power to do anything by his mind? I mean, is God not involved in the world? Is God have simply given laws and rules and left us to our own self to say you do whatever you want to do? You are now God, little gods, or some people say you become God. And I find that God is separate and distinct from his creation. But God does have rules. God does have a right to say what he accepts and what he rejects.
I got to put a little levity here. I'm telling you, if I am overweight and full of disease, I will not tell anybody I'm God. If I don't have teeth in my mouth because they all rotted out and I'm going to tell you I'm God, I'm thinking, well, what kind of God are you? Because I understand God to be perfect in all things. And so we participate with God as co-laborers, in the earth, because he made the earth for man to take dominion over. But we are not God. We are limited sovereigns. We have to depend on these sovereigns. In fact, in reading some of the scientific books I've been reading, even they say that there's a point in which they can't even measure certain things, and there's a greater intelligence, they want to call it, out there. We call it God. I will not back off of saying God, however the word came about. I will not back off on that, because I know that God lives. He lives and he rules and he is. God is. Spirit of God is. But I remember when Paul was writing, I think it was John, when John was writing, the Gnostics were saying these are people who worship at the feet of knowledge and information. They would say that Jesus was a phantom. And John said, no, we touched him. We touched him. He said, we declare him to you because we touched him. And he didn't back off of that. And when people are wanting to take, or systems are wanting to take God from us by saying, he's a neopeptide or something like that, you realize that they're worshiping at the altar of science, and that they're very limited in that. Because I'm looking at these people who are saying these things. They wear glasses, their hair is gray. I don't think that God, I think God is eternal. He is ageless. We are not God. We are God-like, hopefully.
Now, there's something, what I'm about to say now I think may be challenging. The internet is not inspired. It's not infallible, believe it or not. The Bible is. And today I find that, I know our little grandson, he spends hours on the computer, with the internet, and studying things of this nature. We have become so technologically sensitive and dependent that we are compromising sometimes our spiritual sensitivity. Now, allow me to say this. I'm not anti-technologically anti-progressive. I'm not anti-science. But I think in the process of becoming more sensitive to technology, we turn on the news or the technology to find out what the news would be like, what the weather would be like. As doctors, we depend upon monitors and scientific studies to help us in the gathering of our science and our craft. But let it never be said that we become spiritually insensitive to the dynamics of the Holy Spirit that dwells within us, to lead us and to guide us. That in the process of learning about technology and reading the internet and all of the data that's available to us, let's also develop that sensitivity to the Spirit that dwells within us, to help us in our conscience, to help us in our thinking and our feeling in the way we're remote to things. Because the Spirit will guide us and lead us
into all truth.
And he's not opposed to technology, but hear me carefully. Technology is a child of faith.
Yes.
It is not the mother of faith. Let's understand that. Technology did not create God. God allowed technology to be created because God, when he enlightened man, it allowed man to expand, to study, to grow, to understand. And God can speak to believers and unbelievers. He's not, if he can speak through a dumbass, through the madness of the prophet, he can speak through anyone that he wants to do. But I would beckon us to, in our process of developing that sensitivity to the internet and to technology and to all of the advancing progress that we have, let us not lose the sensitivity to the Spirit, that still small voice, as the prophets say, After all the rocks had been shaken, a still small voice spoke to him. Let's not negate the indwelling presence. Let us not develop an anti-charismatic sentiment. Let us not deny the necessity and the need for miracles. Yes, miracles are necessary. Miracles are needed today. Miracles in the supernatural is the validation of the divine faith. God still performs signs and wonders. Yes, we go to doctors. Yes, we depend upon signs. But also we depend upon the living God.
Now, going back to our conversation on discernment, you said there is signs and wonders.
Yes.
We have to discern what signs and wonders have come from heaven and what signs and wonders have come from somewhere else. Because everything that's a sign and a wonder doesn't necessarily come from God. Not God that we understand. Because if it doesn't point us back to God, then it's just sound and fury signifying nothing.
Now, that is a critical thing there. When you talk about what's going on, we see there's a lot of psychic phenomena. There are a lot of people who speaking in the name of God. God said of the false prophet Hananiah, I didn't know him, I didn't send him, neither did I speak to him.
Right.
You're right, Sandra. We must discern the source. Where did it come from? Is it really of God?
Yeah.
If something is of God, first of all, it's without cost. Jesus said to the disciples, you freely receive, you freely give. When you go into this, don't take 2 cloaks. The labor is worthy of his hire. When there's a man for payment, I've heard people say, give a donation, give a down payment to your blessing. Sow toward your deliverance. Everything that God does to us and toward us is out of his pure benevolence and his love. It's not because of anything that we do. We can never measure up to the expectation. If Christ had not redeemed us, became our righteousness, our good works will be just filthy rags. You cannot give enough. You cannot act good enough. You cannot stop doing enough. You cannot change anything you can do to make yourself acceptable. We're not but Christ. But our behavior should emulate the fact that Christ has done something in us.
Yes.
So we need to act and behave as if we are children of the Most High.
Do you know they have 2 young men on the Today Show? They'll go around the world and they are saying like hello to people, or saying you look good, or that's a nice dress you have on, because they're making people feel good about themselves. Well, to me, being a Christian, I want to have that positive impact. When I see people, I don't want to look all frowned up and unhappy and angry. But they are becoming famous because they're telling people that they look good.
Yeah.
And I don't know what they believe. I can't judge that. I will not. But I'm saying something that's a principle of being a Christian is making these young boys famous.
Well, God makes his people look good, whether you like it or not. God does bless his people. He does give us the power to gain wealth, to establish his covenant.
Yes.
God, when he delivers us from the power of evil, hear me carefully, a person that's under the thralls of evil looks bad. A person who's been redeemed and filled with the Spirit has light. And we should have it. Happiness is a choice. We can choose to be happy, we can choose to be sad. So I think that what's going on out here, I'm finding a lot of unhappy Christians that are upset with God. They don't want to be a part of the church. They are forsaking their faith. And I want to come back and say once again, we need to come back and to understand the essence of the Christian faith. The essence of the Christian faith is that it offers many, how can I say, privileges, promises, and responsibility. The privilege we have is access to God. We have the privilege of prayer. We have the privilege of deliverance from evil and the works of the devil. Privilege of deliverance from the power of generational curses. We have the privilege, to be careful, of understanding spiritual things. The privilege of spirit baptism and baptism in the Holy Spirit.
And we have the privilege of understanding things that are not spiritual.
Yes, yes.
We can become quantum physicists and scientists.
Yes,
we can
yes.
become physicians. We can
Yes.
become lawyers and judges and presidents.
Yes.
We can function at any level in the earth.
Yes.
But it doesn't cause us to forsake our relationship with God.
And we have to learn how to deal with disappointments. Disappointment is something that we will probably all experience. Paul said, I was cast down but not forsaken. He said that many times he was in perplexity but not distress. And Paul even learned whatsoever state he was in. I think sometimes we think that being a Christian, Sandra, means that we will live in a utopia. We never have any needs and struggles. And Paul said, I've learned in whatsoever state I'm in to be content. We need to learn how to be abased and to abound. Now, we've often been told that if you don't have sufficiency, it's because of 3 things. You lack faith, you're ignorant of the promises of God, or you must be in sin.